When people think of Chinese cuisine, one dish often stands above all others: Peking duck. With its impossibly crispy skin, tender meat, and elegant presentation, it has become one of the world's most celebrated culinary masterpieces. But behind every perfectly roasted duck lies a story that stretches back more than 600 years, a story of emperors, royal banquets, ancient cooking techniques, and the city that made this dish legendary, Beijing. The origins of Peking duck can be traced to China's Yuan dynasty during the 13th century. Although roasted duck had already been enjoyed for centuries across different regions of China, it was during this period that imperial chefs began refining the dish into something extraordinary. Historical records mention roasted duck being served in the imperial kitchens, where only the finest ingredients and cooking methods were acceptable for the emperor's table. Everything changed when the Ming Dynasty established Beijing as the imperial capital in the early 15th century. Along with the emperor came thousands of skilled craftsmen, scholars, artists, and perhaps most importantly, master chefs. The imperial palace became a center of culinary innovation, where recipes were perfected with remarkable precision. Among these creations, roasted duck quickly earned a special place. Palace chefs experimented endlessly, seeking the perfect balance between crispy skin and juicy meat. They discovered that carefully raising specific breeds of ducks, feeding them rich grain diets, and allowing them to mature under controlled conditions produced meat unlike any other. These ducks would eventually become known as the famous Beijing ducks. Preparation became an art form in itself. After slaughtering and cleaning the bird, air was gently pumped beneath the skin, separating it from the layer of fat underneath. This unusual technique allowed the skin to become incredibly crisp while preventing the meat from drying during roasting. The duck was then coated with a sweet maltose glaze, hung to dry for many hours, and finally roasted inside large brick ovens. Different roasting methods emerged over time. One technique suspended the duck inside a closed oven, where the heat surrounded it evenly. Another method used fruitwood fires, often from pear, peach, or jujube trees, whose fragrant smoke subtly flavored the skin while giving it a beautiful amber color. Even today, many of Beijing's most famous restaurants continue using these traditional ovens, preserving techniques passed down through generations. For centuries, however, this remarkable dish remained a privilege reserved almost entirely for emperors, royal families, and high-ranking officials. Ordinary citizens rarely experienced such luxury. Inside the Forbidden City, magnificent banquets showcased dozens of elaborate dishes, but perfectly roasted duck often became the centerpiece, symbolizing prosperity, refinement, and imperial prestige. That exclusivity began to change during the 19th century. In 1864, a restaurant called Cuisine opened its doors in Beijing. Rather than serving only the imperial court, it introduced the magnificent roasted duck to merchants, scholars, travelers, and eventually the general public. Cuisine quickly became famous for its exceptional quality and meticulous preparation, helping transform Peking duck from an imperial delicacy into a national treasure. Soon, other legendary restaurants followed, each developing its own techniques and traditions. Families visiting Beijing considered a duck banquet an essential part of their journey. Diplomats, foreign visitors, and world leaders were often treated to Peking duck as a symbol of Chinese hospitality and cultural pride. The experience of eating Peking duck is carefully choreographed. At the table, a skilled chef slices the duck with remarkable precision, producing thin pieces of crispy skin along with tender meat. Delicate pancakes are served alongside cucumber, scallions, and a rich sweet bean sauce, or in some restaurants, hoisin sauce. Each guest assembles their own wrap, combining textures and flavors into a single perfect bite. Every element has a purpose. The crisp skin provides a satisfying crackle. The juicy meat offers richness. Fresh vegetables add brightness and crunch, while the sweet sauce balances everything together. It is not simply a meal. It is a carefully designed harmony of flavor, texture, aroma, and tradition. Beyond its extraordinary taste, Peking duck represents centuries of craftsmanship. Generations of chefs have devoted their entire careers to mastering a recipe that appears deceptively simple but demands incredible precision. Small details, air drying time, oven temperature, wood selection, carving technique can dramatically affect the final result. Today, Peking duck has traveled far beyond Beijing. It is served in luxury restaurants from New York to London, Tokyo to Sydney, introducing millions of people to one of China's greatest culinary traditions. Yet many food lovers agree that tasting it in Beijing remains an unforgettable experience. There, surrounded by centuries-old traditions, the dish carries a sense of authenticity that cannot easily be recreated elsewhere. Modern chefs continue to experiment with presentation and flavors, but the heart of the recipe remains remarkably faithful to its imperial origins. Each perfectly roasted duck tells the story of royal kitchens, patient craftsmanship, and the enduring pursuit of culinary perfection. In the end, Peking duck is much more than roasted poultry. It is a living piece of Chinese history, a dish that survived dynasties, political change, and centuries of cultural transformation while remaining one of the world's greatest symbols of fine dining. So the next time you see that golden glistening skin being carved before your eyes, remember that you're not simply watching dinner being served. You're witnessing a tradition that has delighted emperors, inspired master chefs, and captivated food lovers for more than 600 years. And perhaps that's the true secret behind Peking duck. Its greatest ingredient isn't the duck itself, it's history.